Chapter 1. Alf Aldrich's Rise. God Emperor Marcus Aurelius and his descendant God Emperor Aldrich are, as normally, fighting against the Dark Emperor, otherwise known as Alpha, in a brief little actual battle before just snapping their fingers and attempting to wipe him from existence itself, but something changes this time. The Dark Emperor, realizing what is about to happen, decides to make a risky play. He creates a blade of darkness and uses it to make a cut in God Emperor Aldrich's skin, before then crumbling his own physical body and transforming into his true form that would be pure darkness itself, consisting of his tendrils of darkness. And he inserts one of his tendrils of darkness into God Emperor Aldrich's cut, placing his influence into it and beginning to enter through it, allowing him to technically make himself part of God Emperor Aldrich as to not be snapped away. As then, after the snap, he then entirely goes into God Emperor Aldrich's body, all of the while making the illusion of him rushing at God Emperor Aldrich and disappearing against his body. God Emperor Aldrich then begins to scream out in pain as the Dark Emperor, Alpha, takes control of Aldrich's body from within, and eventually, he succeeds, but God Emperor Marcus Aurelius doesn't even know.
The screams of anguish and defiance echo through the cosmos as the Dark Emperor Alpha takes over God Emperor Aldrich's body. The tendrils of darkness coil around his organs, his very soul, until they are one. The once divine visage of Aldrich contorts into a twisted mockery of its former glory. The light in his eyes extinguished, replaced by the cold, calculating gaze of Alpha. "Are you all right, Aldrich?" God Emperor Marcus Aurelius asks, concerned for his descendant. "I'm fine. I think he tried to possess me or something like that," Alpha says, using Aldrich's voice and pretending to be Aldrich, and doing so disturbing well. God Emperor Marcus Aurelius nods, his eyes scanning the area for any sign of the elusive Dark Emperor. He doesn't suspect a thing, the illusion of Alpha's defeat too convincing. But inside, Alpha is laughing maniacally, his tendrils of darkness spreading through Aldrich's body like a dark plague. He feels the power of the God Emperor within him, and it is intoxicating. The potential, the knowledge, the very essence of creation itself. Alpha then controls Aldrich's body to walk over, and picks up the blade of darkness he created and used to cut Aldrich to enter him, seemingly too, from God Emperor Marcus Aurelius' perspective as a trophy of their victory. But in truth, in front of him stands not God Emperor Aldrich. In fact, not even Alpha Dark Emperor, but some twisted fusion of both. Alf Aldrich. One could call him now. Marcus nods solemnly, his gaze lingering on the blade before looking back at Alf Aldrich. "Not knowing the horror that lurks within, we must inform the others," he says, his voice carrying the weight of newfound responsibility. "Yes, let Lady Winter and others know, and do the thing you did in the past as well," Alf Aldrich says, referring to how God Emperor Marcus Aurelius had taken control of the respective rival empire of the time, the Empire of Frosthaven, along with the world itself back in the year 1004. And now, Alf Aldrich is suggesting he do the same for here with the shattered USA and the rival empire of Sunhaven now. Marcus nods, his eyes gleaming with purpose. He doesn't realize that every word Alpha speaks through Aldrich's lips is a calculated move in a chess game that has been playing out across millennia. He sends messages to his allies, instructing them to spread the word of the victory and to prepare for the next phase of the grand plan. The survivors of the world breathe a sigh of relief, unaware that the true threat has not been vanquished, but has instead infiltrated their very ranks. Days later, God Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and now secretly Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich snap their fingers, taking control of the Empire of Sunhaven as well as the entire world itself, leading to a golden alliance forming between the Empire of Frostreach, which is the empire that Aldrich ruled and Alf Aldrich now rules, the Empire of Sunhaven, and the Neo-Human, beyond-human mutants created by scientists playing God. The world begins to rebuild under the guidance of the Golden Alliance, with technology and magic intertwined as never before. However, in the shadows, Alf Aldrich starts to manipulate events to his liking, planting seeds of doubt and discord among the allies. His ultimate goal is to become the sole ruler of all realities, and he knows that patience is key. Alf Aldrich begins to resurrect and re-empower former puppets, including the Shadow King, Mordecai. Once long ago, the necromancer of Marcus Aurelius' own Empire of Sanctity, but who was turned away once he lost the Battle of Vatican City, and had his powers stripped from him by Emperor Thoric I of Frosthaven, and thus had turned to shadow magic to get his vengeance, including via mutating himself in ways both magical and scientific. The Shadow Queen, Lilith, once a humble envoy of Scotland, after God Emperor Marcus Aurelius had forcefully taken control of the entire world, and in response to that had ventured into the shadow, Rome to change things for the better and obtain vengeance. And the Dark Lord, Lothar, once the original first Emperor of Sanctity, and one of the two founders alongside Marcus Aurelius, who abdicated the throne to adventure and become a warrior of legend known as the Last Champion, but fell in the Battle of Storm Dragon Mountain at the hands of a charged energy blast from the Storm Dragon itself, then corrupted to truly see sense by the Shadow King Mordecai, and become his successor. He even repairs the Dark Lord Lothar's blade, and restored the Shadow King's lost former necromantic abilities, all under the cover of secrecy. The Shadow King, the Shadow Queen, and the Dark Lord Lothar, now more powerful than ever, each begin to amass their own forces. The Shadow King calls forth legions of the undead. The Shadow Queen commands the spirits of the vengeful and forgotten. And the Dark Lord Lothar gathers an elite group of warriors known as the Knights of the Dark Eclipse. Their movements are like whispers in the wind, unnoticed by the blissful inhabitants of the newly unified world.
Chapter 2. Alf Aldrich Goes Darker. Alf Aldrich himself, though, lives the life of Aldrich and sees the wonderful family that he has and that God Emperor Marcus Aurelius has. And remembering to watching his own parents being massacred in front of his eyes as a child back in the year 719, and how his parents were murdered while these power-hungry God Emperor's families survived, it finally truly breaks him. He will murder every family member that both of these God Emperors have personally and secretly, to punish and torture them, and only then, after he has made them feel his pain and trauma, and then some, only then will he continue on his goal to change existence itself to get rid of war and pain and such. Marcus Aurelius, still unaware of Alpha's manipulation, continues to work alongside his trusted descendant. Their combined forces move swiftly, bringing peace and prosperity to the lands that have been ravaged by war. Yet, whispers of a darker force lurk beneath the surface as Alf Aldrich subtly sows the seeds of doubt and discord among their allies. Alf Aldrich then creates the final plan, with the plan given the name, the Dark Rapture, and how all those that follow and serve the God Emperors will receive punishment, but only a quick and painful death. But he gives no date to the Shadow King, the Shadow Queen, and the Dark Lord for it to happen, and reveals he will give the date at a later point in time, because secretly, he wants to focus on secretly murdering all of the God Emperor's family members with his blade of darkness.
The Shadow King, the Shadow Queen, and the Dark Lord, now more powerful than ever, each begin their own campaigns of chaos across the realms. The Shadow King focuses on the east, bringing fear and destruction to the lands of the rising sun. The Shadow Queen, in the west, uses her sorcery to manipulate the minds of the people, turning them against their leaders and sowing the seeds of doubt. The Dark Lord, in the north, amasses a legion of the undead, each soul a testament to his unyielding power over the abyss, but they do it in complete and utter secret. And meanwhile, Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich officially secretly murders Aldrich's mother, and makes it seem like some unknown assassin had done it, and plays the part of a grieving Aldrich perfectly. After all, he himself knows how it feels to lose a parent, so faking replicating that feeling is extremely easy for him. The Golden Alliance, which is in truth just a propaganda name for the dominance of the Empire of Frostreach, controls the entirety of the Earth and the world itself. Meanwhile, Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich murders all of Aldrich's former family, then all of the surviving family of Marcus, Aurelius over the course of a single month, each one hidden and reacted to as if he were Aldrich perfectly. The world remains oblivious to the horrors happening in the shadows, as the Golden Alliance continues to rebuild and expand under the guise of unity and peace. Alf Aldrich's cunning is unparalleled as he plays both sides of the chessboard, ensuring that his true intentions are never suspected. The once mighty families of Aurelia and Japan are now nothing more than pawns in his grand scheme.
Chapter 3. The Dark Rapture. And eventually, on the 6th of June in the year 2166, the Dark Rapture is put into play as Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich reveals himself and lifts up all of the followers of the God Emperors up into the air by their necks using his tendrils of darkness, making all of them look like victims of hanging, as if the tendrils of darkness are endless nooses of pure shadow. The shock and horror on their faces as their gods are revealed to be nothing but pawns in Alf Aldrich's twisted game is palpable, and the once proud leaders of the Golden Alliance are left trembling and powerless before him. The Shadow King and the Shadow Queen stand by his side, their faces a mix of loyalty and fear as they watch the world fall to their master's will. God Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself, though, steps up to face down the Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich in a 1v1 battle to decide the fate of, well, everything.
The tension on the battlefield is palpable as God Emperor Marcus Aurelius draws his sword, his eyes narrowing into slits of rage and betrayal, his once shimmering aura now tainted by a dark energy that mirrors the malicious intent of his adversary. He charges at Alf Aldrich with a speed that defies his mortal body, each step leaving a crack in the earth beneath him. God Emperor Marcus Aurelius then himself summons to him the true sacred relic itself to attempt to aid him in this great battle against Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich.
Chapter 4. Alf Aldrich vs. Aurelius. A battle begins, as God Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself charges at Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich with a sacred blade. The clang of steel against the unfathomable alloy of the sacred relic echoes through the realms as the two leaders lock in a fierce duel. The power of the true sacred relic amplifies Marcus's every move, each swing of his blade leaving a trail of divine energy that sears the very air. Yet Alf Aldrich, now the embodiment of shadow and deceit, remains unfazed, his tendrils of darkness weaving a complex web around Marcus, seeking to bind and crush him. The clashes between the sacred blade and Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich's blade of darkness are seizure-inducing, with the rapid shifting between the brightness of 1,000 stars and the darkness of 1,000 black holes, as they both swing several billions times each second, each millions of times faster than light or dark itself.
Marcus, fueled by rage and the power of the true sacred relic, pushes his body beyond its limits. The very essence of his soul seems to pulse with the power of the divine as he swings the blade with a fury that could shatter worlds. Yet Alf Aldrich, with his cold, calculating precision, matches him blow for blow, his tendrils of darkness wrapping around the divine blade in an attempt to drain its power and corrupt its purity. God Emperor Marcus Aurelius then powers up to his maximum potential as the God Emperor, and his power surpasses that of Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich by an infinite amount, leaving Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich on the back foot with seemingly no way to possibly win. Marcus's eyes blaze with the light of 1,000,000 suns, his very being a beacon of divine wrath. The true sacred relic in his grasp burns brighter than ever before, the power of the gods themselves seemingly channeled through it. With a roar that shakes the cosmos, he charges at Alf Aldrich, each step leaving a crater in the fabric of reality. The air around him distorts as he moves, as if the laws of physics themselves bend to his will.
Chapter 5. Shadow of Erebus. Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrich is for a moment concerned, until he notices a cut on God Emperor Marcus Aurelius's face. Then he sheds his physical form and becomes his true form again, and enters into God Emperor Marcus Aurelius' body through the cut. The once human shell of Marcus Aurelius convulses as the dark energy of Alf Aldrich consumes him from within. His divine form twists and distorts, the light of the true sacred relic flickering as it's overwhelmed by the shadowy tendrils. The battlefield goes silent, the only sound the guttural growl of the dark power overtaking the last bastion of light.
POV shifts to within the mind and soul of God Emperor Marcus Aurelius' body. God Emperor Marcus Aurelius opens his eyes, and sees a very injured and pained-looking God Emperor Aldrich in front of him, as both of them are in a pure white void of nothingness that seemingly never ends. "What is this place, Aldrich?" Marcus asks, his voice strained and filled with pain. "Marcus Aurelius, how did you get here?" "I have been trapped here for over a month," God Emperor Aldrich says in shock. And it is now that God Emperor Marcus Aurelius realizes that it hasn't been Aldrich at all for the past over a month. Then, nearby, a seemingly normal man fades in, but no, he is but a shadow, literally, as if on a wall, of a normal man with short hair, but with the tendrils of darkness. Also mere shadows as if on a wall, emerging from his back. W who or what are you supposed to be? God Emperor Marcus Aurelius yells out in rage. Then the figure very calmly yet eerily responds in a voice that echoes infinitely. "I am Alpha, the shadow of Erebus, the god of darkness, a primordial being that has existed long before existence itself has." The figure says calmly yet darkly with a dark voice that echoes infinitely. "This is the true form of Alpha, of the Dark Emperor, of the Shadow God?" Marcus stares at this new form of Alpha, his eyes narrowed in determination. "You think you can fool me with your tricks?" he says, raising the sacred blade. "You're going to pay for what you've done." Then Alpha, Shadow of Erebus, simply and casually points at the sacred blade. And what sacred blade? There was never a sacred blade. Whatever you are talking about must have never existed. Alpha, Shadow of Erebus, made it so. Marcus, now holding nothing but his own two hands, is stunned as the very reality around him seems to shift and distort. What sorcery is this? He whispers to himself, his voice echoing through the void. "Well, you must know of Erebus, the god of light, god of all, and, as you can tell, I am his shadow, and you of course would know, one's shadow is always larger Alpha shadow of," Erebus says as he is infinite in size. "What are you talking about? He was always infinite in size. He made it so. And thus, it is and always has been." Marcus clenches his fists, his eyes burning with the light of 1,000 suns. "Your tricks won't work on me. Shadow of Erebus, I am the avatar of the true light," he shouts, and his body begins to glow, the power of his divine heritage surging through his veins. Then, when he charges forwards, he is right back where he was. What do you mean? He never moved. He could never move, Alpha. Shadow of Erebus decided it was so, and thus it is, and always was. Marcus, realizing the gravity of the situation, takes a deep breath and calms his racing thoughts. He focuses on his training, his beliefs, and the love for his family that has driven him this far. He understands that he is now in a battle not just of physical strength, but of wills. "You may control this realm of shadows," Marcus says, his voice steady despite the chaos around him, "but you cannot control the light within me." Marcus Aurelius then fired a beam of light, but he never did. Alpha, Shadow of Erebus decided it was so. Marcus, now understanding the true nature of this battle, closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. The light within him flickers and grows, and suddenly, the world around them changes. The white void is replaced with a landscape of golden fields, a symbol of the purity and truth he represents. The light from his eyes expands, forming a sort of pure, divine energy in his hand.
6. Alpha's tragic past and it vanishes. There was never any field, as Marcus Aurelius fell through his nightmares, as Alpha, Shadow of Erebus decided, and all he decides happens, and him, a literal living shadow on the wall, watches Marcus Aurelius fall. The ground rushes up to meet Marcus, but he doesn't hit it. Instead, he finds himself in a new reality, a reality that is the dark reflection of his own. The once golden fields are now barren and scorched, the sky an ominous red, and the air thick with the stench of sulfur. The very fabric of this world seems to pulse with malevolence, and Marcus knows that he is deep within the heart of Alpha's domain.
Alpha then begins speaking, but not as the Shadow of Erebus, but now as just a small child. And Marcus Aurelius notices that very same small child crying in front of two dead adults, presumably their parents, as war occurs around them. And Marcus Aurelius realizes this must actually be a memory of Alpha's. The child's sobs echo through the desolate landscape, each one a manifestation of the pain and anger that fuels Alpha's power. Marcus approaches, his own heart aching at the sight of such innocence corrupted by war and loss. He reaches out a hand, not to fight, but to comfort. The memory then shifts to Alpha later on as the Shadow God, swearing to change existence itself to rid it of war and segregation and all other bad things. Then shifts to God Emperor Marcus Aurelius reversing, time preventing him from reaching his full potential. Then the next time, he does after flying off into space, and he rules a space empire until he finds that no good comes of it, then abandons it, then flashes forwards to after he had taken over Aldrich's body. And Aldrich has also been there and watching the entire time as he experiences Aldrich's family and feels true rage at the cruel God Emperor's family surviving just fine while his innocent civilians were murdered right in front of him as a child, and then him swearing to bring about absolute vengeance by killing all of their family. Then the memories flash to him using Aldrich's body, secretly killing all of the God Emperor's families, starting with Aldrich's mother. Then the memories flash back to Alpha as a small child before his dead parents as he awakens his dark and shadow magic and is deemed a demon for them and hunted down. Eventually, the two empires even send their entire armies after him, leading to him awakening his tendrils of darkness and exclaiming, "Why you really think of me as a monster this much? Why you want me to be a monster so badly? Fine, if you want me to be a monster so badly, then I'll be exactly the monster you want of me." As he cries tears of blood, before he then transforms into a monster, but one that is still clearly human, and wipes out the attacking soldiers, then executing the general, who had mercilessly murdered his innocent civilian parents right before his eyes. The scene then returns to the present, as Marcus's hand touches the child form Alpha's shoulder, his eyes filled with a mix of pity and determination. "You do not have to be this," Marcus whispers, his voice cutting through the cacophony of the twisted reality. "You can choose a different path, one of redemption and peace." The child version of Alpha looks up at him, his blood-red eyes glowing, as he shifts into an adult version of himself. "I seek to fundamentally change existence so that war and strife, and segregation and pain, and so that genocidal warlords like you God Emperors no longer exists. You are the problem here." Alpha screams out at the two God Emperors. Marcus Aurelius's heart clenches at the raw emotion in Alpha's voice. He understands the pain of losing everything and the desire to prevent others from suffering the same fate. However, he also knows that vengeance is not the path to true peace. "You're right, Alpha," Marcus admits, his voice steady. "There is much suffering in the world, but by becoming what you despise, you only perpetuate the cycle." Alpha then sighs, the intense rage still apparent in just the sigh. "In order to build a better world, one must burn the old one down," Alpha says as a dark fire covers the area around them, still within their currently shared mind, including all of the problem individuals of it, such as you genocidal warlord only obsessed with more and more power and control and only caring about yourself. Alpha screams at God Emperor Marcus Aurelius again, who can't help but honestly agree with him and his logic.
Chapter 7. A final clash of ideologies. Marcus Aurelius looks into the void, contemplating Alpha's words. He knows the history of his own reign, the wars he's waged, the lives he's taken in the pursuit of peace. "Perhaps there is truth in what you say," Marcus concedes, his voice echoing in the vastness of the inner realm. "But what you fail to understand is that in destroying me, you destroy the very hope that I've worked to protect. Without balance, darkness will consume all, leaving nothing but ash. And that is my goal, to from that ash, start anew, start existence itself again from that very start, from my very start, but remove war and segregation and strife and pain from the equation entirely. That is the only path to true peace, Alpha says. Absolutely, with a hint of the absolute voice of Alpha, Shadow of Erebus in there, Marcus Aurelius. His divine form flickering with doubt and contemplation, raises his sword. Then let us test our ideologies, once and for all.
Alpha then turns back into Alpha. Shadow of Erebus, you and your ideology in truth. Only survival, light and dark exist, and, well, as opposed to your thoughts, light is not good, dark is. Light is a purely destructive and evil force. You are not the hero in this story. Alpha is. He may be the villain as well, but he is the true hero. The only true hero, Alpha, Shadow of Erebus says. His dark and infinitely echoing voice speaking only the absolute truth. Marcus, shaken by Alpha's words, yet firm in his beliefs, responds, I am the hero of my own story, as are you of yours. But our paths diverge because I refuse to believe that destruction is the only path to peace. The light within me is the hope of a better tomorrow, the warmth of love and the wisdom of compassion. It is not about the eradication of one or the other, but the balance of both. No, you misunderstand. You are not the hero of this story. You are, in fact, the villain, the main antagonist of this story, this reality, and Alpha is the hero, the main protagonist. You and him follow those roles you are meant to, and thus you do. You weren't originally the villain, and Alpha wasn't originally the hero. But your roles were switched because the one truly in control, the one only I can even come close to opposing, has decided it to be the case. Alpha, Shadow of Erebus says, its voice utterly truthful and purely neutral, only a primordial force, one beyond even this reality and hundreds others in power. Marcus, now with a serious expression on his face, I will not accept such a fate. I will fight for the light, for the good, for the hope of this world. If that makes me a villain in your eyes, then so be it. His words resonate with the divine will he has drawn upon, the very essence of creation, itself backing his resolve. Sigh, guess you are beyond saving. As to be expected, Alpha, Shadow of Erebus says entirely neutrally and emotionlessly before then, Marcus Aurelius is completely powerless, as he always has truly been both deep down and on a fundamental level, and as Alpha, Shadow of Erebus, has decided shall be, and thus shall be. And thus, God Emperor Marcus Aurelius is left completely powerless. Same with God Emperor Aldrich especially.
Chapter 8. End of the God Empress. Meanwhile, in the outside world, Marcus Aurelius' body is just standing there alone in the middle of the former battlefield, seemingly hollow as all of this is happening in the fundamentally higher level of existence and reality, that is his mind and soul, and nothing is happening within sight of everyone on the outside, leaving them all confused. The elemental avatars, the leaders of Europe, and the surviving soldiers of the Golden Alliance stand in stunned silence, their weapons at their sides. The sudden absence of power from Marcus is palpable, a stark contrast to the fiery presence that once emanated from him. They know something has gone terribly wrong, but the extent of it remains shrouded in the fog of their limited understanding.
Meanwhile, back in Alpha's Aldrich's, and Marcus Aurelius' currently shared mind and soul, Alpha, Shadow of Erebus, sends a tendril of darkness that consumes God Emperor Aldrich and absorbs him in darkness, and thus his soul and mind are dominated and absorbed by Alpha Zone, leaving God Emperor Marcus Aurelius there powerless and only able to just accept his fate and try, and internally reach redemption for his own many various crimes. Marcus, now alone in the abyssal space, looks into the vast nothingness, contemplating his life and the choices that led him here. He feels the weight of his own sins, the lives he's taken in the name of peace, the wars he's started and the wars he's ended, all culminating in this moment of introspection and acceptance. Then Alpha returns back into being the Dark Emperor before, then absorbing God Emperor Marcus Aurelius' mind and soul. completely consuming them both.
Chapter 9, Alpha Aurelius. Then the body that once belonged to God Emperor Marcus Aurelius opens its eyes as it shifts into one that is a grotesque fusion of those of God Emperor Marcus Aurelius, God Emperor Aldrich, and the now dark God Emperor Alpha, and the eyes are those of God Emperor Marcus Aurelius and Aldrich, grotesquely seemingly attached on there, with permanent looks of shock but with Alpha's naturally blood-red eyes, as the tendrils of darkness emerge from the back of this new, strange being, not Marcus Aurelius, not Eldrick, not Alpha, and not even Alfoldrick. The Golden Alliance and Elemental Avatars watch in horror as their leaders are seemingly no more, the power of the Dark Emperor Alpha now unmatched and absolute.
W, what are you? W, who are you? Lady Winter screams out, and then the figure, with its grotesquely mismatched face, responds, Alfoldrelius, the figure says. Its voice a grotesque mix of that of Alpha, Marcus Aurelius, and Aldrich all at once, all as one, and overlaid over each other at the same time. The Golden Alliance and Elemental Avatars reeled back in horror, their worst fears realized. The once noble God Emperor Marcus Aurelius and the wise God Emperor Aldrich, both of their minds and souls consumed by the Dark Emperor Alpha.
Chapter 10, Enlightenment for all Dark God Emperor Alfoldrelius then lifts his arms, and a wave of darkness is unleashed across the entire planet, and all of the denizens learn that light was actually the true evil the entire time, and that darkness was the true good, and that Alpha, one who has known only pain, was willing to turn into this monstrous, painful, and abominable form, and literally become a monster, just to bring about a better world. As they now all feel enlightened and realize that the light had manipulated them all for so very long, the world, now enveloped in shadow, begins to change. The very essence of the planet shifts as the dark energy of the Dark Emperor Alfoldrelius seeps into every corner, reshaping the very fabric of existence to his will. The Elemental Avatars and the Golden Alliance, their eyes now open to the truth, fall to their knees in awe of the being that stands before them. Then the incredible advancement of the world doesn't cease. It continues on. If anything, it grows even greater and faster.
The once war-torn lands now flourish under the rule of the Dark Emperor Alfoldrelius. The shadowy tendrils of his power stretch across the globe, bringing order and peace in a way that the rigid structure of light never could. Cities rise anew, their spires twisted and black, gleaming in the eternal twilight. The people, once divided by the tyranny of light, now unite under the banner of the shadow that has brought them understanding and freedom from their former oppressors. And eventually, space travel is discovered, and after enough time, Dr. Erebus of course betrays and absorbs the Celestium crystals. And after that, war is waged on the cloaked figure, the Andromedan Oracle, in order to reclaim the Shadow Planet itself. And the cloaked figure defeats all of the Golden Alliance and the Elemental Avatars, until Dark God Emperor Alfoldrelius steps in and, with a single blow of one of his tendrils of darkness, defeats the cloaked figure, and then they have a detailed discussion about morality and Alfoldrelius' goal to fundamentally change all of existence and even reality to eliminate war, segregation, strife, and pain as a whole. Their conversation is intense and thought-provoking, each one trying to sway the other to their side. The Dark Emperor Alfoldrelius speaks of his vision for a world without suffering, a place where all beings can live in harmony, free from the constraints of their past and the fear of their future. The Andromedan Oracle, once a symbol of wisdom and foresight, now known as the Cloaked Figure, argues that pain and conflict are necessary for growth and evolution, that without them, existence would stagnate and eventually wither away. Eventually, arguing to his last breath, the Cloaked Figure, the Andromedan Oracle, passes away from his injuries, including every single one of his bones being shattered from a single blow of one of Dark God Emperor Alfoldrelius' tendrils of darkness. The space around them grew quiet as the echo of the Oracle's final words hung in the air. The Golden Alliance and Elemental Avatars, once fierce adversaries, now stand united behind Alfoldrelius, their newfound respect for the Dark Emperor palpable. The vast expanse of the cosmos stretches before them, a canvas for Alph Aldrelius to realize his vision of a peaceful existence.
Chapter 11. Clash with Dr. Erebus. Eventually, Dr. Erebus, with his Erebusian Empire, including his right-hand man Nemesis, alongside Solara and Phantom, launches an all-out invasion on the New Shadow Empire. The skies above the once shimmering cities of the New Shadow Empire now darken with the approach of the Erebusian fleet. The gleaming ships, powered by the stolen Celestium crystals, cast an eerie glow across the landscape. The ground trembles as the fleet descends, their intentions clear, to challenge Alph Aldrelius for dominion over the universe.
Eventually, Dark God Emperor Alph Aldrelius challenges done. Erebus directly and is beating him badly, until he fully powers up to the maximum power of the Celestium crystals, and becomes Supreme Erebus, at which point he is actually able to give Dark God Emperor Alph Aldrelius a very good fight. The clash of their power is cataclysmic. The ground cracks and the skies split as they trade blows that resonate through the fabric of reality. Each strike is met with an equal and opposite force, their forms blurring with the speed of their movements. The battle rages on for what feels like an eternity, each one pushing the other to their limits. Eventually, Dark God Emperor Alph Aldrelius uses the sacred relic with the dark stone he created on the Shadow Planet from the Shadow Stone 2, creates the dark relic, then absorbs it, transforming his body as he becomes Darkest God Emperor Alph Aldrelius, and his body transforms from a hideous fusion to a harmonious and perfect fusion of Alpha, God Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and God Emperor Aldrich, and he then proceeds to easily defeat, but spares and redeems and recruits Supreme Erebus. Darkest God Emperor Alph Aldrelius' form is now a breathtaking spectacle, a confluence of light and shadow, a living embodiment of the cosmos of duality. His power is so immense that it's difficult to comprehend, a testament to the fusion of three mighty entities. He stands tall, his eyes now a swirl of gold and shadow, and an aura a blend of fiery phoenix flames and the cold, dark abyss.
Chapter 12, a different God Emperor ritual. He then goes back down onto Earth for one last loose end, and defeats and vanquishes Emperor Cato of Blazing Sun, before then stealing his Phoenix Flame Catalyst and Inferno Ignition Core, and has a God Emperor ritual done onto himself in the center of the Omniverse, fusing the Phoenix Flame Catalyst and Inferno Ignition Core into himself, becoming Grand God Emperor of Darkness, Alph Aldrelius. The Phoenix Flame Catalyst and Inferno Ignition Core pulse with energy, merging with Alph Aldrelius form. His aura now combines the fiery essence of the Phoenix with the dark might of Shadow, creating a spectacle that leaves even the gods watching from afar in awe. His power skyrockets to unimaginable heights, his very presence reshaping the fabric of reality around him.
Then the New Shadow Empire ventures out, where Grand God Emperor of Darkness Alph Aldrelius defeats and absorbs the Omniverse, devouring the Void itself into himself, becoming Grand God Emperor of the Void Alph Aldrelius. And then they go even higher up, past the infinite dimensional fractal dimensions of the cosmology, until they find the Abyss, the final obstacle, the devourer of existence itself, the final threat, the end-all be-all, and Grand God Emperor of the Void. Alph Aldrelius vanquishes and absorbs it into himself, becoming Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alph Aldrelius. Before he then passes out, the Golden Alliance and Elemental Avatars gather around him, their faces a mix of shock, awe, and concern. They had never seen such a display of power, nor had they ever imagined that one being could contain the essence of so many forces. As Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alph Aldrelius lay there, unconscious, his body a swirling vortex of shadow, flame, and the very fabric of the void. They could feel the universe itself holding its breath, unsure of what would come next.
Chapter 13, the Grand Author Topov switches to following Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alph Aldrelius. Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alphuldrelius wakes up and finds himself in seemingly a completely normal room, with a seemingly completely normal 19-year-old, brown-haired, brown-eyed man wearing an extremely comfy black hoodie and wearing rainbow headphones sitting at a table, typing away at a computer on a rainbow keyboard, seemingly typing everything into existence and into happening. The man then turns towards Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alphuldrelius and begins speaking to him. "Hey Mr. Mouthful of a Name, Aka, Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alphuldrelius, nice to finally see you here."
Alphuldrelius, still trying to process his surroundings, cautiously responds, "Who are you?" His voice, once booming with the authority of a god, now sounds hollow in the mundane room. "Well, I'm Grand Author James, your creator and the creator of the spin-off story that you are currently in," Grand Author James casually exclaims. Alphuldrelius's eyes narrow, his shadowy form rippling with power. "You dare to claim such a thing? I am the Grand God Emperor of the Abyss, and I'm the one that came up with that disaster of a name for a form," Grand Author James says, casually eating popcorn, which he didn't have previously. Alphuldrelius is momentarily taken aback by Grand Author James' nonchalant demeanor. The room they are in is suddenly bathed in a soft light, as if to highlight the absurdity of the situation. The smell of popcorn fills the air, mingling with the faint scent of ancient ink and parchment. The walls are lined with countless books, their spines shimmering with the potential of untold stories. "Where did you even get that?" Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alphuldrelius asks in relation to the mysteriously appearing popcorn. "I did," Grand Author James just casually responds, eating some more popcorn while still just typing away, writing everything to happen. Alphuldrelius glares, his shadowy form flickering with anger. What is the meaning of this? He demands, his voice echoing with the power of the Abyss. Needed to fit this section into this story to match the original. That's just how it goes with spin-off stories. You know, Grand Author James just casually comments. The Grand God Emperor of the Abyss, Alphuldrelius, stares at Grand Author James in disbelief, the room around them pulsing with the dark energy of the Abyss. You are but a mere scribe, a weaver of words. How can you claim to be my creator? You are, in truth, merely literally a bunch of words from the perspective I am currently looking at you. Just a character in a story that I am writing, and have been procrastinating on writing for months. Grand Author James explains and admits. Alphuldrelius's form wavers, the power of the Abyss rippling around him like a mirage. A character? He echoes, the weight of the revelation sinking in. But I am real. I feel, I think, I have conquered, I have loved, I have hated. Characters can do that. I have thought out many other interactions with other characters to have. You do later on once I get finished up with this story. Grand Author James admits while shrugging. Even characters can feel and do things, and can at times impact real people more than even other real people can. Grand Author James then adds on. But what is your intent with me? Alphuldrelius demands, his shadowy tendrils reaching out, threatening the very fabric of the room. Do you intend to rewrite me, to control me like a puppet? Well, you are merely an alternative version of the original character of Alpha. Grand Author James admits. Alphuldrelius's eyes narrowed, his fists clenching into balls of shadow. What does that mean? Well, in the original story, Alpha didn't body steal or mass massacre hundreds. In fact, you are the most evil version of him so far. After all, this is only the first story of the AI Invasion What If series, and you have helped to make it a good start. Grand Author James explains. Alphuldrelius's rage builds, his form growing more and more monstrous. What right do you have to play with my existence? To dictate what is and isn't real, he roars, the room trembling with his fury, because, well, I am real, not this me, Peresi, but the actual me, the one behind the screen typing what you and I both are saying to each other. MY true form. Grand Author James elaborates. The Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alf Aldrelius pauses, his form stabilizing as he processes this revelation. His eyes narrow, and his voice drops to a whisper. What do you mean by that? Well, what you see here is only the basic me, the casual me, you could say. At my true power, I would be truly, absolutely infinite in size. True form me is straight up beyond the concept of fiction itself, because that me is truly real. Grand Author Jamies explains in a perception of reality-shattering way. The room goes silent as the gravity of James's words sinks in. Alf Aldrelius, the Grand God Emperor of the Abyss, contemplates his existence and the power that Jamies claims to possess. He can feel the vastness of James's true form pressing against the fabric of this reality, a force that could snuff out his own power like a candle in a supernova. Anyways, boom, bam, pow. Here's your power-up. Gonna go eat my popcorn now. Grand Author Jamies says as he defeats Grand God Emperor of the Abyss Alf Aldrelius in 3 hits, then powers him up into Grandest Emperor Alf Aldrelius, before, without even moving his body, just flies straight through the wall as the room turns into a blank, white, empty rectangular room. Grandest Emperor Alf Aldrelius, now even more powerful, is left standing in the void-like room, his eyes wide with astonishment. He looks around, his monstrous form shrinking down to his regular human-sized body, his shadowy tendrils retreating. What is the meaning of this? He asks, his voice echoing through the emptiness.
Epilogue of Dreams. Grandest Emperor Alf Aldrelius then is instantly transported to where he suddenly passed out after absorbing the abyss in the place of his passed out body to the awaiting people of his new Shadow Empire. The citizens of the new Shadow Empire gather around him, their eyes filled with hope and fear. They have heard tales of his epic battles and the power that he now wields. They kneel before him, chanting his name in unison, their voices echoing through the vast halls of the castle. Alf Aldrelius stands tall, his eyes gleaming with the power of the Grandest Emperor. He feels an unprecedented strength coursing through him, a power that could reshape worlds.
Grandest Emperor Alf Aldrelius then powers up even further and becomes Omnipotent Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrelius, then snaps his fingers and destroys the current reality and instantly recreates it. Starts it over from before the wars that ruined his life began in 719, but completely got rid of war and segregation and strife and pain from this new reality. The new reality. The new reality is a utopia, a world without suffering or war, where every creature lives in harmony. The once tortured lands of the former empires now bloom with life and prosperity. The castle of the new Shadow Empire is now a beacon of peace, a place where the greatest minds of the multiverse come together to share knowledge and create a brighter future. And Omnipotent Dark God Emperor Alf Aldrelius is able to watch his new reality self flourish and reach his true potential as he watches over as an active and truly omnipotent god of this peaceful new reality. The new reality. The end.